So, as my co reporter mentioned earlier about the task system introduced in a keynote term, which is the VAT or value added task, let's move on and talk about what is value added task. The VAT law was signed in 1986 and put to effect in 1988. While it was a reliable source of revenue for the government, new tax law would reduce its reliability as legislated exemption. So, the VAT law was signed in 1986 and implemented in 1988, initially providing a reliable source of government revenue. However, new tax law with legislated exemption may reduce the reliability of VAT as a revenue source because when we say exemption, means fewer good and services na sakop ng VAT na nagdudulot ng mas kaunting kita na nakokolekta. The Bureau of Internal Revenue or BIR, through the Executive Order 127, tax collection and tax audit were intensified. Computerization was introduced and corruption was relatively reduced, which improved the trust in the BIR in general. So, mas mataas ang naging tiwala ng mga tao sa BIR dahil mas mahigpit ang pangongolekta ng task na tumutulong sa pagbawas ng korupsyon sa bansa. As a result of the task reform of the Aquino administration, both task and revenue effort rise. As you can see sa chart, tumaas ang task at revenue magmula 10.7% noong 1985 ay tumaas ng 15.4% noong 1992. Nagkaroon naman ng great political stability during the presidency of Fidel Ramos in 1992 that allowed for continuing economic growth. This administration ventured into its own tax reform program in 1997 through the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program, which was implemented to make the tax system broad-based, simple, and with reasonable tax rate. This means that everyone should pay taxes, the rules should be easy to understand, and the amount of tax people pay should be reasonable based on how much money they make. Then the second one is minimize tax avoidance allowed by existing flaws and loopholes in the system. So there are sometimes ways that people can avoid paying taxes by using loopholes in the system. This point is about fixing those loopholes so that everyone pays their fair share. The third one is encourage payment by increasing tax exemption levels, lowering the highest tax rates, and simplifying procedure. So this strategy aims to make paying taxes more attractive by reducing the burden on taxpayers. And lastly, rationalize the grant of tax incentives, which was estimated to be worth 531.7 billion pesos in 1994. So the tax incentives played a significant role in the economic policies during the period. The VAT base was also broadened in 1997 to include services through the Republic Act 7716. The features of improved VAT law were as follows. First, restoration of VAT exemption for cooperatives. This applies to cooperatives that are agricultural, electric, credit, or multi-purposes that provided the share capital of each member does not exceed to 515,000 pesos. The second one expanded the coverage of the term simple process by including broiling and roasting, effectively narrowing the tax base of food product. So this effectively narrows the task base for food product by roasting and boiling. The third one is expanded the coverage of the term original state by including molasses. So when we say molasses, it is a versatile ingredient that can be used in a variety of ways. It is a good source of nutrients and can add a unique flavor to your dishes. Number four, exempted from the VAT are the following. First is importation of meat. This means that importing meat is not subject to VAT. Second one is sale or importation of coal and natural gas in whatever form or state. This exemption applies to coal and natural gas in any form or state. The third one is educational service rendered by private educational institution duly accredited by the Commission Higher Education or CHED. So this exemption applies to educational services provided by the private institution that are duly accredited by the CHED. Next, house and lot and other residential dwellings valued at 51 million and below. This means that the sale or transfer of these properties is exempt from VAT, but the value is subject to adjustment based on the Consumer Price Index or CPI. And next, less of residential unit with monthly rental per unit of not more than 58,000. This exemption applies to the rental of residential unit with monthly rent not exceeding to 58,000 pesos. The rental amount is also subject to adjustment using CPI. Then the last one is sale, importation, printing, or publication of book and any newspaper. This exemption covers the sale, importation, printing, or publication of books and newspaper. Now let's move forward to Joseph Estrada. The succeeding term of President Estrada in 1998 was too short to constitute any change in the task system. Then the Vice President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo was swept to power through another EDSA revolution. So, as a president, she undertook increased government spending without adjusting tax collection. This resulted in large deficit from 2002 to 2004. At dahil sa large deficit na nangyari, the government had to look for additional resources of revenue. So, in 2005, the Expanded Value Added Tax or EVAT was signed into law as Republic Act 9337. This expanded the VAT base, subjecting to VAT energy products such as coal and petroleum products, electricity generation, transmission, and distribution. And in February 2006, the VAT tax rate was also increased from 10% to 12%. So, as President Benigno Aquino III succeeded President Arroyo in 2010, he promised that no new taxes would be imposed and additional revenue would have to come from adjusting existing taxes. The administration ventured into the adjustment of excise tax on liquor and cigarettes or the sin tax reform, motivation for which was primarily fiscal, public health, and social order related consideration. The said task reform was a policy change by the Philippine government that focused on adjusting the excess tax on alcohol and cigarettes, often called as sin product. Next, The SIN task reform significantly improved social services. It tripled the Department of Health budget in 2015 and increased the number of poor people with free health insurance from 55.2 million in 2012 to 515.4 million in 2015. Ang sin-tax reform ay nagpapakita na ang pagtaas ng buwis sa ilang mga produkto ay hindi lamang maaaring magdala ng mas maraming pera para sa gobyerno, kundi maaari ring humantong sa mga pagpapabuti sa mga serbisyong panlipunan, lalo na sa pangangalagang pangkalusugan. During the presidency of Aquino, the Republic Act 10351 was passed, and government revenues from alcohol and tobacco excise taxes increased. Collection from tobacco and alcohol in 2015 made up of 1.1% of the gross domestic product. Next, the administration of the new President Rodrigo Duterte promised tax reform, particularly in income taxes, as it vowed to lower income tax rate shouldered by working Filipino. Dahil dito, isa sa pinakamataas na buwis sa kita sa Southeast Asia ang Pilipinas. The proposed tax reform also seeks to limit VAT exemption and increase excise taxes on petroleum product and automobiles. So, ito ay maaaring magdulot ng mas mataas na presyo para sa mga mamimili, ngunit maaari ring magbigay ng pondo para sa mga programa ng gobyerno because the proposed tax reform aims to increase government revenue by expanding the VAT base and raising excess taxes on fuel and cars.